everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Joining me for second visit, my good friend Mark Hornok. Mark, welcome to the show again. We've before we hit record, you and I have shared our sadness about our Cowboys.
We've tried to decide if it's worth to continue watching.
Yes. I used to joke to Chris, that's my son, this game's so bad, I'm going to go turn on a Springsteen DVD because Bruce never disappoints me and the Cowboys constantly disappoint me. So, normally our friends in Philly and New York would be feeling all happy that the Cowboys are so bad, but they are struggling as well.
They're just as bad off.
Yes, the NFC. Yes, the Washington Redskins, the Washington football team, and are all going, "Oh, good, we have a Cowboy game to play." It's good. So, how's everything going there at home?
Good. Probably not that different than when we talked a few months back.
Yeah.
Illinois is probably one of the more shut down states.
Yeah.
I don't think our numbers are really worse than a lot of places, but we've probably gone over the top compared to some states. And, things like high school football are not happening where I know every state that touches us has already played 5 or 6 weeks. And, there's just a lot of people that are upset, both sides.
Yeah.
And, I'm just looking forward to it ending and just to talk about something else. I mean, even this is fun just to talk about something else.
Yeah, absolutely. We're and we do have good news, right? We have, as we're recording this, we're just a couple of days away from a new Springsteen album. So
that is always an event.
That is always an event. And so we'll stay away from controversy. And what do you think of the first couple of songs?
So I like them both. I like one better than the other. Letter to You was the first song, obviously, that came out. And I think it's good. I think it fits very well with what he's trying to say. But I'm a much bigger fan of Ghost at this point. I think Ghost is potentially going to be one of the best live songs that he's put out in years. I can't wait to see them perform it. I'm anxious to kind of see where, it fits in the set list. If it's, it seems like it might be the opening song, which you can imagine this idea of like a spotlight on Bruce and him, screaming out that "I hear the sound of your guitar" part.
Yeah.
And then, I start to wonder, what are they going to do with that middle piece where they kind of come to a stop? Are they going to kind of, because the songs, in the live setting always seem to grow a little bit.
Right.
And this just seems tailor-made for the stage. And I would say the first day that I started listening to it, the lyrics seemed a little, hokey is not the word that I wanted to, but they were so, homey and about, where he grew up. And it seemed maybe a little too on the nose is better.
Right.
Every day that goes by, I like Ghost more and more and more. I think it's as good a song as he's put out in years.
Ken Rosen said the same thing when he was on the podcast. We're celebrating his 1,000th blog, and I know that there is that I can't remember who, but there's an hour-long interview from a that is on YouTube and I can't remember the journalist, but had the little orange beanie, and he talked about he could actually hear the live where the song takes a break, and he says, "I can just hear you, Bruce, going, 1, 2, 3, and going back in it again." It sounds like he's really looking forward to playing all the songs.
Mm-hmm.
I am excited about watching the film this weekend to see. It sounds like it's similar to Western Stars. I know a few people have gotten advanced copies of both the album and the film, and it seems to be overall the consensus is it's really good. So I think it's nice. I I think it's exciting at 71. We're getting new E Street material.
I mean, the truth is, it's amazing that,
Yes.
at this point that it's even happening and
Yeah.
that it's even being released in the middle of
Yeah.
all this. You could certainly see it being held back.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, but, Bruce just probably has this idea that sooner the better, and who
Yeah.
knows what tomorrow brings and that kind of thing. The interview you were talking about, because I did watch that as well. I think I just looked it up on my phone. His name is Zane Lowe.
Yeah. Really good interview, I thought.
I thought he did a good job. But the amazing part is I thought I heard him ask some questions I'd never heard anybody else ask.
Yeah.
And in particular, when he started asking about different instruments, I had never heard Bruce talk specifically about the guitar from Nebraska.
Yes.
And then the fact that he could just turn around and find it in that stack. And when he played it, it sounded a little different. It's had its own
It did.
tone.
And I think that was a great story. Like he said, this guitar kind of gave me Nebraska, and I haven't used it much else. One of the things that I remember in the autobiography, he talked about the first time he got money, he wanted a guitar in every room. He spent a lot of money on guitars. And I was talking to my friend, Sarah Hickman. I was telling her that story. Sarah's a singer-songwriter, now retired, but lives in Austin. And she laughed. She goes, "That sounds very musician-like," because she goes, "I have a guitar in every room too." She says, I have a guitar. I thought that was interesting. I also really was interested in the USA Today interview where he talked about there have been substance problems with the E Street Band. They kind of nipped it on the bud. It isn't like they hushed it up, but it's like, you're having a problem. We're going to take care of it. We're going to get you where you need to have. And he even used the word rehab. And it, we've often talked about that the E Street Band seems to be like controversy free. And they've lost 2 members, but both of them through not overdoses or accidents. But, so I thought that was kind of a nice twist I'd never heard before.
It certainly makes them feel or sound a little more normal when they do have this, something of a clean-cut image. And I know that everybody knows that was probably not always the case.
Right.
And they're an unusual band when you go back in time or go back in history. And even though they did have, changes up until, I guess, 74, 75, that core group that made those albums, 75 forward, is almost unchanged until people passed away. And those passing away were later on. Yeah,
they were. I mean, and I just had a guy, I just released, Daniel was on the podcast, and, the little blurb I often start a podcast with, but I was impressed with this. He said, this is an episode that just came out. He said, like in 98, I'm watching the reunion tour, and you're thinking, okay, this is it. This is, they've come back, maybe they're, and he said, maybe they'll be the Eagles where they'll tour every few years. But, this is the zenith of it. And then the Rising and Magic and Wrecking Ball and the River, 16 tour. He said, if you had tried to tell me in 99, 98 that some of the best material is ahead of us, I would have not believed it. And the reality is it's true.
Well, the other part is, as much as they've done and as much has been recorded and as many tours there have been, we're getting to the point where the reunion is longer than the original, tenure of the band.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's crazy.
You go up through Tunnel of Love. We're getting past that point, and if anything, there's as many tours, or if not more, and as many albums, if not more. There's as much catalog on the second half as there is on the first half. And I know sometimes you'll see people make playlists of like the reunion era Bruce. I think a lot of us wish some of that stuff would get played more. Yeah. And I think it's a tough spot because people do come to see certain songs, but I would love to see a reunion era only set.
Well, one of the things I asked early when I was doing the podcast, and it's a question I've kind of gone away from, is, I asked, like, do you prefer the E Street Band on steroids during the Wrecking Ball era where they had the horns, and the backup singers, or the slimmed down E Street Band with, and the other question I asked is, um, I would be happy with a set list of Tunnel of Love forward, and that's it. They played nothing but songs from Tunnel of Love forward. And my guest said, and I would be happy with a Darkness backwards set list of
I
nothing
think
back.
I actually heard that episode now
Yeah.
that you say it.
And I think the reason why is, as much as we love, all these strongs, Backstreets and go on, Badlands and everything, it would just, there is so many songs that he doesn't play anymore, like, from Magic or Wrecking Ball or, and there's a couple from High Hopes I would have loved to hear. So it's very cool. So
You can tell when he's excited about the album as much
yes.
once the tour starts, because he's playing those songs and building the set around them. And that hasn't been the case 100% of the time, maybe in the last 10 years, where at one point it was always the case.
Yeah, exactly. Like in fact, my friend Sam went to a Wrecking Ball tour in the second half of the tour, and he said, we went to Kansas City together, and he says, I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't go to one of the earlier shows because they were doing more songs from the Wrecking Ball. And now then, like, and it does feel like he does this, okay, I'll do a US tour, I go to Europe, then I come back, and on the second round, okay, I'm going to mix it up a little bit more.
All the more reason to go to more than one show.
Yes, exactly. More than one show. Yes. So very good. So yes, we will all be eager on Friday the 23rd to hear officially hear the album and be able to talk about it and share some favorite songs. I know I am just looking forward to it, and I think it's just a really, really, it's a nice gift, because as crappy as 2020 has been, it's a nice surprise that we're getting a new album.
Oh yeah.
All right, so one of the reasons I had you back on is I had a series of episodes where I was asking questions. And to give you a little background, everyone, the sports station I listened to in Dallas, The Ticket, used to do an episode every week. They did bands coming to town, and they discussed the shows that coming to town. It gave them an excuse to talk music. But when the pandemic hit in March, all of a sudden there's no shows coming. And so the band started, the guys on the morning show came up with 11 songs that they called the bands of your life. A band you hate, a band you think is overrated, a band that's underappreciated. And me and a bunch of my buddies on How Many podcast did a series of episodes, but my son Chris was like, you should make that more Bruce-centric, Dad. And so I did. So I've come up with 11 questions, and the premise is that you can pick one Springsteen song to answer each question, but you can only use a song once. So, and Mark was nice enough to email me and said, hey, I'll play, Jesse. So you want to give any thoughts about, did you do a lot of thinking? Did you just immediately kind of like knew some of the answers right away?
I probably knew 2 or 3 of the answers right away.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were hard. And I've
Yes.
heard other people say the same thing, that, different songs could probably fit in multiple categories.
Yeah.
And kind of have to plug them in. And you could probably put Born to Run or Thunder Road in a lot of the positive.
Yes.
And amazingly, when I got to the end of my list, I didn't have Born to Run or Thunder Road anywhere.
Oh, how funny.
And that doesn't mean I don't think they're amazing. It was more of, I didn't think they fit perfectly.
Okay, good.
Because obviously they're pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very good. Very good. All right, so let's start out with the negative. Song you hate.
So I am a little uncomfortable with the question. But so when the email you sent me said, or I just don't get.
Yes,
So I'm gonna lean towards the I don't get more than I hate. But
yes,
there's several choices that I could have put in that category. There are some songs that Bruce has recorded that need more music, in my opinion. There are songs where he has changed his voice a little unnecessarily for effect that worked or didn't work. I'm not always loving the bullet mic when he goes
Yeah.
that route. But I think my choice doesn't fall into any of those categories. It's an older song, which I think a lot of people are huge fans of and maybe falls in the original classics. But it's 4th of July, Asbury Park, Sandy.
That is interesting.
Has anybody had that one yet?
No, they haven't. And I will tell you, it is not one of my favorites. Like,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, just like I know, like when they had talked about, and it's a sad story, right? Like Danny knows this may be the last time he plays, and he asks, Bruce says, "What do you want to play?" And he's like, "We got to do, Sandy." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I know people are yelling at me right now. It's just not a song that means a lot to me. So I have your back on this one.
Well, and I know people get excited, and everybody wants to hear any of the old songs, especially the ones that don't get played
Yeah.
all the time. To me, it plods along a little bit. The lyrics seem kind of forced into a few spots, and the truth is, this is a Bruce that, while there's great songs on Born or on Greetings or on Wild and Innocent, clearly this is a guy that really found his voice on Born to Run.
Yes.
And it just wasn't there. And I was at that 2008 Indianapolis show where Danny did come out and play for the last time, and they did play Sandy, and I'm thrilled that they did, mind you.
Yeah.
But if you asked me to pick from a list of songs, especially for the bigger songs, I don't get it.
Okay. Very nice. All right. So, song you think is overrated?
Also a category I'm uncomfortable with.
Yes.
But I think this is the last negative one.
There's only the two.
Yeah, there you go. And there's a lot of stuff I could have put here as well. And I think a lot of songs, especially maybe the lesser known songs that became kind of legendary until they were actually heard. Some of those, when I heard them the first time, I was like, oh, that's okay. I would say Frankie falls in that category.
Sure.
Which I've warmed up to a little bit more over the years. But I'm going to put Bobby Jean in this category.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a surprise or not, but it's a good song. And I actually don't think it's the fan base that overrates it in any way. I think the guy that overrates it is Bruce himself.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I love the sentiment of it for sure.
Yes.
And the story that's in there. But he tends to play this in the encores. And you rarely hear it anywhere else in the show. It's more of a mid-tempo song. I don't think it's his best mid-tempo song. And when I hear it come out on one side or the other of Born to Run or something else in the encores, it just never fits to me. And I think that's what's happened to it over the time. And again, it's good. It's fine.
Sure.
It's slightly, in my mind, overrated. And again, I don't think it's most people that think that. But if Bruce wants to play a 2-song set of Sandy and Bobby Jean this weekend, I will find a way to be there.
Yes, absolutely. I get that. Absolutely. All right. So let's flip it around. What is a song that you think is underappreciated?
Sure. And then a couple of these, the songs that I'm excited about, a couple of these came up when we talked the first time. And I will say, if you're asking for something that's underappreciated, this was actually really easy for me.
Okay.
And I think that the song I would put in that category is Walk Like a Man from Tunnel of Love. I think it's one of the most underappreciated songs ever by any artist, let alone the Springsteen catalog. It covers a lot of ground. The fear of being married is in there, which you don't hear all the time.
Yeah.
The idea of being truly on your own. It's a thank you for a good example from a parent. And it's also just a realization that life is not easy for your parents, which is something as a kid you just don't understand. And I don't know if a kid would get the Tunnel of Love album as much as an adult, but this is probably the song where maybe it hits home the most. Actually, I scratched down one of the lyrics because there's a quote that you could take from a lot of the verses, but he says, "I was young and I didn't know what to do when I saw your best steps taken away from you. I'll do what I can. I'll walk like a man." So he recognized that, hey, life wasn't easy for my dad. I see things are difficult for me and that marriage is not easy. But then there's that last line that he finishes with, and he says, and I'll keep on walking. And the idea that this will come up over and over again, he knows there's hard times coming. He knows it won't be easy. He recognizes that his father tried and did his best, but this is what he's choosing to do in this ongoing Bruce theme. When things are difficult, I'm going to pick myself up. I'm going to continue forward. And I just don't think anybody else has covered all that ground in a song talking about their wedding day.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice. I really appreciate that. That's well done.
I wish
All
he
right.
would play that one live once in a while.
Yes, that would be very nice. Song that you love.
Also,
all
easy,
of them, right? That's the easy answer. Yeah.
Easy but difficult. And
right.
I think this might be the only song that we both had on our list.
Okay.
So I put Tougher Than the Rest here.
Ah, nice.
So I got back-to-back Tunnel love songs. I could have just as easily put Brilliant Disguise here, which I think is equally great. I think those songs work so well together. But when you really listen to it, first of all, musically, I think it's beautiful. But he describes relationship troubles in the beginning. So now we're into this relationship, we're into this wedding, and the lines are so simple at the same time. He says, "Somebody ran out and left your heart in a mess." In one sentence, you know exactly what he means. He says, "You fell for the wrong guy, a handsome Dan, a good-looking Joe."
Yes.
And even by including those names, it's so perfectly descriptive, which you wouldn't always get in that situation. But at the very end, he said, he reminds her, it's not too late. You've been through all these struggles. He tells her, there's another dance, and all you got to do is say yes. This is your chance at love. I'm the one. This is not a new sentiment in rock songs, obviously. But again, I don't think anyone has said it exactly like this or as well. And I talked about the music and I love that guitar solo in the middle.
Sure, absolutely.
He doesn't, he's a legendary guitarist that doesn't get credit for it because most of the guitar stuff, and including Stephen Ornill's as well, most of it works within the context of the song and is not purposely showy. It's just so good and just right. And I would even say it's not one you see all the time, but it's one of the better Bruce videos too, because it's got the live component, but then you see the people, kind of the couples coming together. It works so well for the song, and I love it.
Yeah, and you're right. I picked that as my song you can listen to over and over again for everything, the reason you're doing. I love when he does it. I love covers of it. I just think it is and I mean this in a nice way, a workhorse of the song. It is such a great song. So yeah, great choice.
Is there a cover I should look for that you really like?
Now I'm going to have to be challenged. I'll have to sit it.
Yeah. Put you on the spot.
No, I'll have to think about that. I know Sean Colvin does. I believe. Sean Colvin has a really
covers albums.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
they're all good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go with your song you can listen to over and over again.
Okay, I put Atlantic City in this category.
Great choice.
And again, there's so much to say about this. That same ongoing Bruce theme of continuing to move forward when life kind of doesn't go exactly the way you want. He says, maybe everything that dies someday comes back. Even when things are bad, when we're actually at death, you still have a chance to move forward. Things don't have to be over when they seem they're at their worst. And much like we talked about in Walk Like a Man, the idea of moving forward. He says, it's a different way to say it, but he puts his foot in the sand and he says, let's put our makeup on, let's put your makeup on, fix your hair up pretty. We're not done. We're going to go out there and keep trying.
Yeah. And
the other cool thing about Atlantic City, and when your song is listened to over and over again, it's good in every incarnation too. So obviously the Nebraska version is so great. But then when you go into the E Street Band version, starting with Born in the USA, which was, really good right out of the bat. But after that, I actually think the 92, 93 band did such a wonderful job with that. When they came back on the reunion tour, they were actually playing it a little bit more like they did
Sure.
on the reunion tour. And I was not there, but people that talk about the last show of the reunion tour say Atlantic City was just shaking the building that night because the crowd was just singing it back to them. And then even to the Seeger sessions.
I was just going to bring that up, right?
Some people, and maybe rightly so, have a little bit of a beef with some of the versions of the older songs because some he did so differently.
Right.
And you know they've all got their place, but this one is so good and is just it's still kind of a rocker or a little bit more of a folk rocker, but a completely different tune and just as great.
Yeah, a great choice. I think that is absolutely spot on for all the reasons you said. I had not thought about all the different versions, but you're right. And I do think I think it's wonderful that this song, coming from Nebraska, has turned into an E Street band. And I guess staple is the wrong word, but it is regularly in the rotation. It is not a shocker if they play Atlantic City, and it's really done. Yeah. All right. Song that made you fall in love with Bruce.
All right. Again, you could come at this one a couple different directions. Right. You know, if it's the very beginning. But I'm gonna take it a little different spin. I would say this was the song that took me from being a big fan to completely over the top.
Right.
And I think other people feel this way, and that song is going to be "Racing in the Street."
Nice.
It's what made me slightly obsessive about some of this stuff. And there is a quote in the Glory Days book, a Dave Marsh quote. I think that's the book it's in. I could be wrong, but he says it's the line of demarcation separating casual Springsteen fans from fanatics.
Nice.
And there's another category coming up to say, a song that kind of snuck up on you or something like that. I didn't get it right away. It's not the most obvious song on Darkness on the Edge of Town. It's not Badlands or Prove It All Night or something like that. It takes you a little while to figure it out and see what it is. And the more time I spent with it, there's just so much there. Again, the idea of moving forward, making your life better is there again. He says, some guys give up living and start dying little piece by piece. But he says, not me. He says, guys like me, other guys come home from work, they wash up, they go racing in the street. They continue to move forward. They look for something better, some meaning in what they're doing. And then the piano outro is so good. The reunion versions, occasionally, I will say, get a little bit showy for me.
Sure.
Roy can do whatever he wants, in my opinion, but those older versions, the piano solo that he plays just works so perfectly in the song. So this was actually the song that I chased for the longest time.
Nice.
It was my favorite song. It seemed like 5 different times it was on a set list, but not played. And then I did see it a time or two on Devils and Dust. But the cool ending to that story is that we were at the 2008 Harley show, and my wife actually made a Racing in the Street sign.
Oh, very cool.
Bruce pulled the sign up late in the show. And we actually have a really cool picture of it as well. It just topped the whole thing off to be that much better.
Oh, that's perfect. That's just great. So, similar, but a little bit different, song that changed your life.
Again, you could go at this multiple ways, and my answer here is what I consider to be, I guess this is the core song of the entire Springsteen experience. And Bruce is such a big part of my life, and that's listening to this music for so long, that's probably why I put it in this change your life category. But I picked The Promised Land in this category. It gets played a lot, which is wonderful. I think Bruce thinks of it as one of his most important songs. Sums up everything that he talks about in almost every record. I believe that things can be better. I believe there's a time and a place where what I will do will pay off. He believes in a promised land. There's a religious piece to it, like other songs where trouble has gotten in the way of somebody's life. There's that recurring theme. It's actually his most definitive statement about fighting back against struggles and trouble. He doesn't just say, do your best or try harder. He says, blow away those things. He makes it perfect. It's defiant. He says those things that leave you brokenhearted, the ones that break your heart, blow them away. That's such a different sentiment than you might hear in another song. And then that other, defiant piece, he says, I'm not a boy, I'm a man. I've lived through these things. I've lived through difficulties. I'm still here, and I'm moving forward with what I know. I believe, in a promised land. I believe there's something better. And, I'll talk about different versions again. The band version is obviously amazing, but what he did there on the Jode tour and then into Devils and Dust, completely different arrangement, totally quiet. I don't know anybody that doesn't love that.
Yeah, no, great choice. I totally agree. It's one of my favorite songs. And when I was doing the newbie episodes where I picked 10 songs that the casual fan would not know, or someone who that was one of the songs I had to pick. All right, song that surprised you, Mark.
I have a couple here that could have worked as well. Sometimes stuff just you don't get it right away. And I actually kind of just talked about that racing didn't happen right away, but one day it clicked in. And I'm actually finding, for whatever reason in the short term, like a new appreciation for Adam Raised a Cain, which wasn't always my favorite song. But the song I'll actually put in this category today is Drive All Night. And
nice.
Thank you. And in the same way, I remember first listening to the song and first listening to the river all the way through. First of all, it's a long song. So
it is a long song.
I think it's 8 some minutes. It's slow. It's not particularly catchy by any means. And then, when you first listen to the lyrics, you could argue that they're a little silly when you hear someone say, just to buy you some shoes. That line seems strange to me years ago, but one day, it came on, and I actually think I was in somebody else's house. So I don't know if it was a different stereo or if it was set up differently, or if it was just the right mood. But I remember it was on, and that background vocal of Don't Cry Now came in, and it just kind of snuck into the room, and I just heard it a completely different way. So the lyrics are a little strange. They're brilliant because he made this brilliant song with these lyrics, and it finds a way to work. It's amazing if you see them perform it. It's wonderful, but it snuck up on me because I didn't see it right away. I didn't get it right away, and then one day I just loved it.
That's great. Independence Day would be that for that to me, because it was okay. And then when I saw it when he did the river tour, the second river tour, and it hit me that, he is probably older than his father was when he originally wrote this. And now then he's singing from a different perspective. When he wrote this song, he was the youngster talking to his father, and now then they've switched. He's now that age and looking at his children. So yeah, I think that's a great choice, and I love the idea, right, that you can hear it multiple times, and all of a sudden something clicks. And you go, oh wow, okay, that did surprise me. Song that's a guilty pleasure.
So this falls slightly back in the camp that it could sound slightly critical.
Yes.
But actually before I give mine, I looked at your list.
Yeah.
You sent it. I was thrilled to see what you put today.
Okay. Yes.
Waiting on a Sunny Day gets a bad rap. It just does. I know that there's people in there that feel like maybe they've heard it too many times, or they're tired of the kid stuff. 99% of the people in the arena think it's great, and that's why he keeps playing it. And the truth is, it is a great live song that's easy to sing along to.
Yes.
And I'm sure you put it as a guilty pleasure because you know that negative feedback is out there
Yes.
a little bit.
Yes.
I have no problem with it, and he can keep playing it.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly why I picked that, is because, you know, people on Twitter and other things, that people I love, like, roll their eyes like, oh my goodness, I don't want to hear Waiting on a Sunny Day again, and oh my goodness, tell your kids to stay home. And I smile every time they start playing it. When I hear it on the mix, when I've got it on my phone, it comes up, I smile. And so, yeah, I think it's a great song. I think it's a wonderful song. And I remember some writer said, look, we might as well get used to hearing it because it seems like Bruce loves to play it. You know.
And the cool thing was, even in the first couple weeks of the Rising tour,
Yeah.
people were singing along right away. And part of it is it's an easy song to
It
learn
is,
the lyrics
yes.
to. Easy song to sing along to. But right away, people were singing along with that as much as anything else.
Well, and he said, when he was there at the Devils and Dust tour, he said, this is pure pop, right? This is Smokey Robinson. This is just him, you know, just a pop song, and it's a fun pop song, and I just love it. So absolutely.
You just made me think of something else
Yeah.
before we go forward. One of the other things he said a couple of times, he said, sometimes you write a song just so you can hear somebody sing it back to you. And he's, as much as anybody, he gets that idea that
Yes.
if he's singing and we're singing, that the whole room's going to be better.
Absolutely. And I have said this many times, I feel like he, and I won't speak for Patty, but I feel like he wants to be a grandfather. He is ready to be a grandfather. And I think that's why he connects with the kids. I think that's why, like in the tour, he signed the, you know, pass for a kid that, like, I'll excuse you being late, having them on the show. He seems to honestly enjoy having the 4 or 5-year-old kid up, and he seems proud of them when they sound good, and, you know, like, okay, now tell them, hit it, E Street Band. He seems thrilled.
And it's fun when they really bring it home.
Yes, they do. Yes.
All right. Well, I want a slightly different direction
Okay.
For the guilty pleasure, at least maybe the theme of it. And there's a run of songs on the third disc of tracks.
Yes.
A lot of the Born in the USA outtakes, and then specifically, I would say from TV Movie, Stand on It, Lion's Den, Car Wash, and Rockaway the Days. First of all those songs are fun.
Yes, they are.
And I think they're all good. And I can probably see why they didn't really fit on Board in the USA. They don't really fit with the theme. They never found a home really anywhere else until Tracks. And I think if a lot of artists put any of those 5 songs on a record in the 80s, they would have had a hit with them. They would have.
Oh, I agree.
Had a lot of success.
I would go crazy to hear Lion's Den live.
Well,
I just love that song.
That's a perfect segue, because that's the one of those songs I chose as my guilty pleasure, is Lion's Den. It's super catchy.
Yes.
There's a biblical theme that Bruce does come back from time to time, but he makes it instead of serious, he makes it fun. There are a few live versions. I've never seen it, but there's a few live versions on YouTube. They all sound great to me. I don't know why it doesn't get played more. It's a good song, and you know, kind of like I said a second ago, if someone like Huey Lewis had put that out in the 80s, it would have been a monster hit.
I think you're right. I think that is perfect. I think that you can actually hear, you know, him, you know, a follow-up to Tunnel of Love. I mean, the Power of Love, right? It's just, that's hilarious. Okay, good choice. All right. We kind of talk a little about this almost in every episode, but song you wish you had seen live.
Mm-hmm. And I know I said this before, but I'll put a little more context around it. It's another Track song, and it's Take 'Em As They Come.
Yeah.
I love that song. It's a driver. It's a rocking song. It's musically different actually than a lot of, you know, more traditional setups in Bruce songs. The lyrics actually get a little descriptive about violence more than just alluding to it, which sometimes happens. it's truly an original, and I think different than almost any song in his category. It got played a decent number of times on the reunion tour, but I did not see it. And one of my big hopes for the 2016 River Tour,
Yeah.
at one point he talked about playing a lot of the outtakes. And
Yes.
I don't know if just the album part got too long and he felt like he needed to get more of the big songs in at the end. I would have loved to hear that among a lot of the other
Right.
tracks type River stuff, but that we didn't get. And that would be easily my number one choice. It's one of my favorite songs, period. End of sentence. And I've actually found, because it's not that well of a known song, there's actually we talked about it a little bit ago, but there's some really cool covers out there of this. There's and I don't know if you would know her because she's from Texas, because I'm not that familiar with her. And I hope I don't say her name wrong because I've only read it, but her name's Mary Cutrfello.
Okay.
Cutrfello.
Okay.
She does a version of that. And she's a Texas singer-songwriter. I think she lives in Houston. I love what she did. There's a New Jersey band called the Hudson Falcons that do kind of a punk version of it, which I thought was really cool. And then Jimmy Eat World is probably the one that did the most modern and the one that's maybe even been heard a little bit. All three are kind of cool in their own way. And it's just proof that it's a great song.
I will have to check those out. That sounds awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. To wrap it up, great song to see live.
Okay. So this is another song that could have been Born to Run.
Yes.
And I'm choosing to put Badlands in this spot. And the reason that I chose Badlands here is, while it's a big deal to Bruce fans, Badlands is not a song you hear on the radio.
No.
And when you get to, it's not Glory Days, it's not Dancing in the Dark. When you get to those first couple notes, when that drum hits, the building explodes, and it explodes every bit as big for a song that's not a hit, that's not really that well known outside of the Bruce circles. It's every bit as exciting as when Born to Run starts for a lot of people. And the crowd reacts almost the same way. From a fan point of view, it's actually a little easier song to sing along to than Born to Run. He's extended it with the longer guitar solos. The fans kind of sing some of the tune part at some point. It's an amazing song. And I know some people think it probably has been played almost too much as well. I hear that from people. I don't think anybody's upset when Badlands gets played at show. And
we've done a couple times where I've gone to shows where he opens up with that, and just like we're here, we're ready to rock, let's go, and it gets everyone just kind of going right away. That's a great choice. That's absolutely a great choice.
It's, again, so many other songs. You almost feel bad when you look at what didn't make the cut when you finish your list. But if I had to make everything work in every category, I'm pretty happy with what I have here.
Well, I like it. I think that's a really good thing. And I think there are, as you said, there's multiple. There are multiple songs that could do both, and it is kind of funny. You ended up not picking, as you said, Born to Run or Thunder Road.
It wasn't on purpose.
Category. Yeah, that's great. I think that's kind of nice. But that's one of my. I've talked about this before when my buddy Sam and I will talk about Be the Boss, and someone they have 5 slots and they use one on Thunder Road, and it's like, okay, we get it. Thunder Road's all of us would be on that, but you only have 5 choices. Do you want to waste, and I hate to say waste one, but do you want to use one on Thunder Road when we get it? All of us think Thunder Road is one of the best songs.
Well, there's a good chance when your 5 songs are over that E Street Radio will probably play Thunder Road anyway. Exactly,
right, yes. So that's great. Oh, man, this is wonderful, Mark. I appreciate you joining me. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
So I'm happy to, talk to anybody over Twitter at this point. It's just my first name, last name. So it's at Mark Hornok, MarkHornok. If you want to talk about Bruce or anything else, that's always fun.
Are you still doing your podcast?
Well, I never had a podcast. It's something that I've talked about doing.
Okay.
But my wife thinks, she thinks I should have one. I don't know that I don't know that I have the time, but I'm a little jealous of the fact that you get to do this all the time.
Well, you're welcome anytime, and I will be glad to help you. If you decide you want to do one, so I'll help you do that. I would love to do that. All right. So, any final thoughts?
I'm excited about the new record. I look forward to talking about that with people going forward, and hopefully we get to see some of these songs from the stage at some point.
Yeah.
And it feels a little far away right now.
Yeah. Not to get political, but have you voted yet?
I have not. I'm waiting for voting day.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be a problem here. Although
Okay.
I do, there was plenty of people lined up yesterday outside our library.
Yes.
And people are certainly taking advantage of voting earlier than almost any time I ever remember. I don't think in our town it's going to be a big deal.
So there's someone reported yesterday, and once again, I'm going to just believe it, but that more people have already voted in Texas, early voting, than the total number of votes that went to President Trump in 2016.
Texas is bigger than people think.
Yes, that there is.
I had to think about that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, the total amount of votes cast last election, we've already had that many voted. That's how many people are voting early. So it's which is good to hear. Regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, the more we vote, the better. So that's a great thing.
Well, regardless of which side you're on, for sure, voting for whatever reason in the last couple of decades has been kind of cyclical, and
Yes.
It's strange why sometimes people come out and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's good. All right, Mark, you look, anytime you feel like talking, just email me and say, hey, I've got an itch. This is a topic I want to talk about. That way you can scratch your podcast and you don't have to do all the work. And so I'll be glad to do that. Tell your family I said hi, and
Thank you.
take care of yourself. All right, listeners, you take care of yourself. Be good to each other. Remember to social distance. Remember to go vote. Remember to wear an effing mask. And we will talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Merry Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is part of the Southgate Media podcast group. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.